Hello, everyone. It's Phil Jones from Projector Reviews, and joining me is Matt Murray from AVProEdge. I get asked a lot about solutions for things such as long distance HDMI or distributing video throughout a home. And AVProEdge is a leader when it comes to those types of solutions and more. Before we get started, we'd like to thank AVProEdge and Meridio for sponsoring this year's Spring Projection Showcase, where we get to talk about all the things you need to design a great projection system for a residential or commercial application. So Matt, can you talk a little bit about AVProEdge and the type of options you offer?
Yeah, like you said, AVProEdge is primarily focused on video distribution with HDMI. We do kind of do some things with DisplayPort a little bit, and some things with USB that you'll start kind of seeing come down the pipe. But we make everything from your basic stuff like you're looking at right there, the splitters, HD-Base-T extenders, matrix switchers, large all the way up to 16 by 16s with HD-Base-T outputs, and then into AV over IP for massive distribution. And then we also do some troubleshooting tools and things like that. In addition to HDMI cables, including copper and fiber, we do over fiber extenders, so point-to-point extenders using fiber optic cable. And what we really try to do is be a resource for integrators, especially on the ultra high end, ultra bleeding edge, when things kind of get really challenging as we continually change specs and stuff. So, we want to be a solutions provider for a lot of different various kind of go-betweens, so that's why you kind of see the deep product line that we've created, is so that, we can kind of control an infrastructure deployment and make sure everything kind of is happy together.
Yes, and the way that I met these guys was when I was working for Sony back in the days. I was running around Cedia looking for long distance video distribution solutions for HDR when it first came out, 18 gigabit HDR, 4K at 60 frames per second HDR. And no one really had any real solutions. They would talk in circles, but nothing could really support the full bandwidth of 4K 60p HDR until I stumbled across the ProEdge guys, and they pulled out everything from cables to HDMI extenders to distribution options that no one else had. So when he said bleeding edge, it's bleeding edge. So I've depended on these guys a lot for along the way, and multiple companies, including the new company I work for now, which is Sound United, to provide me with solutions. Heck, my camera right now is connected to my computer via an AVProEdge cable. All of I love the bullet train long cables for that person that's looking for an ultra long optical solution that's going to be prepared for the future. We're even using that 16 by 16 matrix solution in a new building that I'm helping them put together to drive multiple TVs and displays throughout the building. And this is a 100,000 square foot building. So they make some amazing, amazing solutions. So you should check out avproedge.com. But today, we're going to talk about a topic that's been near to dear to my heart because everybody asked me about it. 8K, 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 and long distance distribution. So Matt, let's talk about some of the things that you're doing for 8K.
So 8K is obviously now becoming real. So what I always kind of remind people is when we get the spec, normally there's about a 5-year time period before it gets real. So we got the spec for HDMI 2.1 and 8K back in 2017, and we immediately started, trying to develop products, updating our test environment. And that's one of the most important things that our company does, is we invest heavily into CTS test equipment that we keep in our own R&D facility and in our own factory, so we can actually run physical layer eye pattern tests. We can do protocol testing and stuff like that. So when we get to the point where we could make the ICs using FPGAs, which would be our own programming, or stuff becomes available, we know the products that we're developing are real and are going to work for all of the stuff that you can really throw at it. And I can tell you, Phil, I've been doing this for quite some time now, not as long as you, but there's a lot of stuff out there in the world that just is not getting appropriate testing. So that's, we invest heavily into testing. And we have already started releasing 8K products. We released almost a year ago some 48 gig optical cables. So that's point to point HDMI cables. That's a relatively simple process to make those types of cables. And then we're getting into copper cables. We have the copper cables now that are 8K. And then what you had up on the screen there a second ago, that's a 4x2 that's actually out in the market right now in the beta phase. So 4x2 is probably our number one selling switch configuration, and this one is a 40 gig product. So that's where we're at right now with HDMI distribution devices to really make them affordable for the marketplace.
Yeah.
Seems to be about that 40 gig.
Yeah. 40 gig, let's talk about that, because 40 gig is basically the speed limit of most of these displays. Most of the displays only have a 40 gig input. Most of the output systems, whether it's a gaming card or a gaming console, can only support 40 gig. Most of the receivers can only pass at maximum 40 gig. So while 48 is the dream, 40 is reality. Now, 40 gig will give you every ounce of performance from a modern display, which utilizes a 10-bit panel. So if you're looking for 4K at 120 frames per second on a 10-bit panel, got you covered. If you're looking for 8K 60p on a 10-bit panel, we got you covered. So 40 is more than enough. Now, this little box that he's talking about, I'm going to have to hit him up for and buy one, because I utilize I think it's the older version in my rack right now. Before, I used to have a big, large AV receiver just to be a switcher. That's idiotic. In my lab, I have a gaming computer, I have a 4K Blu-ray, a kaleidoscope, as well as a media player. And I'm always doing side-by-side comparisons when it comes to two projectors. Or I may have a ultra short throw in the front of the room and a standard projector in the back, and I don't want to feel like I need to swap wires every 5 minutes. And having this little guy in the box means I can feed my kaleidoscope to the short throw, my kaleidoscope to the long throw. I can compare two projectors on two carts side by side. So it is even for me, it is a cool piece. And in office buildings or conference rooms where you're trying to display something on a projector and maybe a TV or a flat panel, this is a great option.
Yeah, but I just wanted to mention that this has a really nice upgraded feature. The current one you can downscale to 1080, the 4K version. The 8K version now we can downscale to 4K or 1080. So if you have older displays, or sometimes people aren't quite ready to update all of the infrastructure, so they just want maybe one output to support 8K. That's where that comes into play. I did have Phil, I don't know if you want me to shoot this over to you or just if I can share my screen. I have a bandwidth chart that we created here in-house, and it will show you what you're missing with 40 gigs versus 48. And I actually have the resolutions highlighted. So this is really cool to look at, actually, and I always use this to kind of boil down 8K. If you look at that first tab that says all formats, so this is the scary tab, right? So I always, I like to show this because this is these are all the new formats that are coming with HDMI 2.1, and there's literally 100 lines here. So when with HDMI 2.0, we maybe added 20 formats total maximum, 10 really relevant ones.
And if you go through here, and that's a good point, people are concerned about formats. And if you look at the majority of the formats that are on this list, most of them actually don't exceed the first 80, don't even exceed 40 gigabits per second. You can even do 8K at 120 frames per second if you utilize digital compression or digital stream compression.
Check out the click on the readable tab on the bottom there. This is all I did here was just kind of pull it all together and just try to simplify it. So you see that the highlighted in yellow, those are your 48 gig ones, and these are uncompressed. So you can't. So with 48 gig, you need that to be able to do 4K 120 444 12-bit uncompressed.
Yeah, and that's why I kept saying TVs don't exist that use 12-bit panels. So it's like telling your car to go 300 miles an hour. I
Right.
know you want to use all 16 million colors, but I can only do 1 billion. So,
Yeah.
so, so
Yeah.
it, so,
It's
so,
crazy.
but the cool thing about it is, that if you buy this little device, they're 4x2. It can easily deliver the 8K resolution or the 4K 120 frames per second, which is actually becoming even more popular right now, high frame rate
Correct.
gaming, than actually 8K. Think about how many 8K sources you have versus 4K 120 options, which is PlayStation, Xbox, and graphics cards.
Yeah,
So,
the high frame rate and the VRR with deep color. I mean,
mhm.
it's so incredible looking.
So
Right.
if you want the ability to have multiple game systems connected through the AVR or through a receiver, this is an option. Sometimes you may not need all of that. You just want to plug the game system into two TVs or
Right.
something like that. One of the other things I like about your little 4 in, 2 out is it has a optical out. It'll do audio extraction. In my room, I have, like I said, multiple projectors, but I don't have a big receiver in here. But I wanted some sound. Nobody wants to look at a large picture and listen to the itty bitty speaker that's built into some of these projectors, or the no speakers that are built into
Right.
most home theater projectors. So what I have is a sound bar in the front of the room, and this will allow me, utilizing this, I can actually split the signal, send it to either projector or both projectors, and I can extract audio and send it to a sound bar. So while I'm evaluating the football game, I know my job is really hard. I
Hmm.
actually get to listen to the game as well. So just little things like that. Because I was like, hey, I need this thing to split stuff, and I got to connect to a sound bar. And Matt was like, bang, here's the one that you need. This new guy exceeds my needs, because in the world of projection currently, I think the maximum inputs on a projector right now is right at about 24, which is the one of the new LG home theater projectors, but that's still a 4K 60 device, so it
Yeah.
still even exceeds its capabilities. So, but in the future, I'm sure they will be. Eventually, these projectors back here are going to be 8K, and I can just swap this little piece out, and I will be good to go. So that is a cool solution. Now, what else do you have that you would like to talk about? I know you have a new HDMI extending solution, right? Or video extending
Yeah,
solution.
so we have actually, once that spec I mentioned came out back in 2017, our company went to work almost immediately developing a fiber module because of two reasons. One, there was nothing on the open market that could do EOTF, which is electro-optical transfer, and then opto-electrical transfer back. That's data to light and light to data, and perform those functions for our utility, which is HDMI and running video, very well. So things weren't working well, and things were costing a lot of money. So an extender set would cost, $1,000 or more. So we started at the developing of the module level. So that's where we're at now. We've got the products. These are becoming productized within the next 30 to 60 days. These will be on the open market. But what we're able to do is a completely uncompressed data transmission up to 20 gigs per channel by 6. So our module
Mhm.
can support 6 times 20 gigs, so 120 gigs total. So it's a lot of
so when
data.
so when so when hologram TVs come out, you won't have to replace your extender, right?
Well, unless the core ICs and stuff change, no.
Right.
But we'll be able to do some really really neat stuff with moving. Imagine moving 48 gig video, handling eARC back channel, so getting the uncompressed audio back up to 1,000 feet, and all along doing 10 gig Ethernet connection, uplink and downlink, all with
Mhm.
one single piece of fiber cable. So we're
Yeah.
talking extreme bandwidth. This one that you're looking at right there, that's the 4K one. So there's a 4K one. There's two concepts when you're dealing with fiber. One
Mhm.
is what this will be, which this is going to use available ICs where you can manage the HDMI signal, do
Mhm.
deep EDIT management and things like that. And
Mhm.
then there's also what we call what goes in is what goes out. So
Mhm.
with a what goes in and what goes out product, that's what the 8K stuff is going to be right now
Mhm.
because the lack of available ICs. So
Okay.
that means if we're going to use a channel for Ethernet, we're going to use a channel for ARC, we're going to use a channel for FRL lane 1, 2, 3, 4. So we can do those things that way.
If you have a source device and a display and you plug in a regular HDMI and it worked perfectly fine, this will work perfectly fine. If you plugged
Exactly.
in those two cables and it didn't, and you needed something in the middle to do EDIT correction or something like that, that's not in the 8K one, but it is in the 4K.
Correct.
It acts
Yep,
like a
exactly.
big, long, super high data HDMI cable and does nothing else but pass ones and zeros from point A to point B.
Right. And what it does is that, the difference between an optical cable, like an AOC cable, and a point-to-point extender is I can pull a single fiber or a duplex fiber through a wall or a building much more effectively than I can pull a pre-terminated HDMI cable. Plus, I can use my additional channels for IR, serial, Ethernet, ARC and eARC and those things like that. So they're
Yeah,
just fundamentally different in what their applications are, but yeah, both are needed for sure.
exactly. And I have been encouraging people for the last 2 years at least to pull a piece of fiber because copper can only do so much, even with compression. This really creative lossless compression schemes that people are utilizing, but you can only you can only send so much down a copper line, especially as the line gets longer. So having these cool optical solutions and fiber means longer longevity, because when you build a house, it's better to pull a couple of pieces of copper and some fiber, because you know that 4, 5, 6 years from now, when you need that bandwidth, the way things are going, 2 years from now, when you need that bandwidth, it is available to you.
Right. Well, and the thing, what I always tell people is copper isn't dead, but fiber is inevitable.
Mm-hmm.
Will
Mm-hmm.
people be able to do 8K over copper infrastructure? The answer is 100% absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
That's 85% of the infrastructure in the world. So deploying compression to achieve that, you're going to hear the term visually lossless thrown around more and more. Which Phil,
Mm-hmm.
as you and I know, that's
Mm-hmm.
a clever marketing word. But visually lossless means it's not looking as good as it originally went in.
Exactly. You can't tell.
And yeah, exactly. And fiber is starting to become like, we're doing the same thing. We tell people if you're pulling wire, you're retrofitting, you're building new, you're doing anything, pull the fiber, because that's the only way that you're going to be able to get this stuff uncompressed. Even the 18 gig one, our 18 gig extenders over copper, those still utilize compression. There are some uncompressed things coming, but it's starting to get so hard to do on copper.
Now, there's different types of fiber. Can you talk about the different types of fiber wire you may see?
So for fiber, the way I always explain it is in the home, multi-mode is kind of what is ideal. It's a little bit thicker diameter. It's a little bit easier to terminate. Both work single mode and multi-mode, but I think what you're going to find is the market will gravitate towards using multi-mode in the modules because one, it's being used more commonly and it's easier to terminate, more readily available, and it works great for shorter distances.
Mm-hmm.
Single mode, if you need to go kilometers, that's what you want that for. Multi-mode is great for up to 1,000 feet. The first step is single mode and multi-mode. And
Mm-hmm.
that's you choose. I say choose based on how far you're going. If you're going from a gate that's a mile up the street and you live on a huge property and you want to put a camera down there and run the camera back to the house, that's a single mode. And you want probably some armored cable like you're talking about. Multi-mode for the rest of the house, and then it's a matter of how many do you want.
Mm-hmm.
Simplex is one, duplex is two, and then they have micro distribution, so you can go to 4, 8, 12. I think two. If you get two, multi-mode duplex fiber, you pull that through the house. I mean, sky's the limit with what you can do with that. If you want to go crazy, pull four.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's what I would say.
You guys are always on the bleeding edge, and I've been playing with your fiber stuff and all of your other extending options for many years. and it's always been dead reliable. And you also make lots of other like tools to solve issues that I've had, whether it's with edits or things like that. So we just talked about you can pull that, you can send signal via copper, you can send signal via your traditional HD base T, you can send video via fiber. What the heck is AV over IP?
So AV over IP essentially allows you to use traditional networking protocol to move data around. There is some realities with AV over IP. So AV over IP is fantastic for fast switching. We can do 4K with AV over IP. It's very, very, very stable because it handles a lot of scaling. It can reduce its bandwidth. Whereas if you're using like an HD base T or just an HDMI cable, it's a static bandwidth level, no matter what. If your cabling is a little shoddy or network's not so great, this can kind of back itself down and really make for really great, very, very stable deployments. But you do give up some picture quality when you're compressing this way. So this is using a spatial compression. All HDMI over IP does this, and this is going to be available for 8K. So 8K is going to happen in the IP world, but I just always like to point out, these uncompressed options. So integrators are going to have to really evaluate customer needs and wants because with spatial compression, AV over IP, very big deployment, very easy to deploy, a lot of bells and whistles and features and management features for the system, but you're compressing 48 gig essentially down to 1 gig. Best case scenario 10 gig right now, and until you start seeing networking getting up to 40 gig and more, which exists, but it's thousands and thousands of dollars. But this stuff is just part of the conversation, and it really is a great experience, particularly in the commercial world and the residential world. If you have some large mansions and things like that, this is great because you can have unlimited encoders and decoders and have as big of a system as you want.
Yeah.
But you might still want to do the theater room in an uncompressed way,
Exactly. So I'm thinking like you had mentioned, big hotel. You have this giant hotel with TVs everywhere. And what they're trying to show is the menu and what Vegas show is coming up next. I don't, the guy's not sitting there looking at the preview of Cirque du Soleil going, I think I see a little bit of color compression. That's
Right.
not what that, so those massive things like that. Maybe a restaurant, a very large restaurant, you're trying to simply distribute the games across multiple displays. Perfect for that. And then he said, if you have one room in the restaurant, or you have a mansion, like he said, and you want to have one room, like in our office, we have. If I was looking at like the building that I am, because I'm in consumer electronics, we have 2 theaters, and then the rest of it is just TVs in the lobbies, TVs in the break rooms, and things like that. So the 2 theaters, you want to be absolutely pristine. But if the guy's playing ping pong in the game room, he's really not looking for color compression.
That's kind of what we see. People will deploy an MXNet system, and they'll have a lot of sources hooked up there, and then that will go to the all of the kind of what I'll call passive rooms in the house. But then where they're going to mostly be watching DirecTV, cable sources, things like that. But then when they go to their theater or their main media room, they've got another 8x8 or something in there that can access all of these sources that are on the network. But then they also have the Kaleidoscape and the Apple TV and the kind of money sources where you can view all of the high value content.
Okay, that makes sense. It's funny, you use the same term that I use, passive versus active. Passive is it's not your main thing that you're doing in the room. You may be cooking and looking at the game or the news or game room, that type of stuff. It's not your primary focus. When you go into a theater and you in your theater or your media room and you sit down to watch Godzilla, in 4K HDR, That's active viewing, and
Yep.
that you can mix and match. So you said with this matrix system, you can have dozens of sources if you wanted to. I'm not sure why you would need that, but you could if you wanted to.
Yep. You can have as many as you want. We've done our largest system with this so far is 148 sources and 363 TVs, I believe.
Well, what?
It's these are things like stadiums, hotels, things like
Okay.
that. You know,
Okay. Remember I said that AVProEdge is kind of a solution provider. Yeah. So whether you're looking for something for your home or a gigantic commercial application, these guys have you covered. So looking for long distance HDMIs, looking for solutions to fix your EDIT issues with your video system, looking for great distribution options. So whether you're actively viewing or passively viewing, you're looking for stuff to utilize for a video wall. Check out AVProEdge. So Matt, thank you for coming. We could talk an hour just on some of the other things that are on your website, and I may actually have you come back and do that at a later date.
I have to tell you about a project we're doing just because it's super cool and you'll think it's cool. We're using Cloud9's. If you remember that product, it can do
Mhm,
like dynamic video walls and things like
mhm,
that.
mhm, mhm,
Um, but what we're doing is making someone's building a room that they want to be like a spaceship.
mhm,
So as they start a movie, they have all of these TVs up and down the walls of the theater, and
mhm.
so you start like you're on the land, and then you blast off into the theater, and there's clouds and stuff and stars coming by on the side. So we do crazy deployments, and we help the integrators do all the custom programming for this kind of stuff too if they get stuff that's kind of that level.
Mhm.
So it's just kind of a fun little side note that these kinds of things are possible, and we can pretty
Exactly.
much, if people can dream it, we can do it.
Exactly. And that's what I love about you guys. I can think of multiple projects for multiple companies that I have done that if I needed something, I could call you and you had a solution. So, Matt, thank you for coming. And I hope you guys have learned some interesting things and about some new and upcoming solutions from AVProEdge. To learn more about AVProEdge, check out www.avproedge.com. So take care, and I will talk to you soon.
All right, thanks, Phil. See you later.